I am Ashish Tripathi, Assistant Professor of Faculty of Juridical Science, Rama University, is going to explain my topic, Theory of Mercantilism. Basically, this theory emphasized that nations' wealth and strength were based, served by the increasing export and collecting precious metals like gold and silver. According to Mercantilist beliefs, wealth was finite and nations competed to control as much of it as possible. Basically, this theory explained that in earlier era of trading, the powerful countries used to gather more and more wealth in the form of trade, by which they were using trade surplus method. Now, the core principles of mercantilism is that national prosperity depends on positive balance of trade. I would like to explain positive balance of trade means where there is more trade to export side and less trade import, and to that they are maintaining positive trade balances, and which means that they are exporting more and importing less. Mercantilist nations imposed high tariff on imported generated goods and provided subsidies to domestic encourage exports. Governments strictly regulated trade through policies, and accumulation of trade surplus was not merely an economic objective. Now, in this the theory of mercantilism, the major belief of European colonies was to establish their colonies in countries like America, Africa and Asia to access the valuable raw material supplies such as sugar, cotton, tobacco, gold. These colonies were expected to supply their mother country with resources, serve exclusive market for manufactured goods. Now, trade was controlled through mechanism like Navigation Act England, which restricted the colonial trade to England only. Mercantilism also influenced the transactional slave trade European nations and transported the enslaved Africans to work on plantations in America, producing commodities that were shipped to Europe for profit. Basically, in the theory of mercantilism, we are seeing that how European countries basically demolished the whole economy of the world and only profited their own country by gathering more and more wealth in the form of export surplus and gaining more and more profit in their country. Now, what were the government control and economic regulations in that? Governments took an active role in directing economic activities, shaping industries and protecting domestic markets. This interventionist approach included the establishment of state-supported monopolies, the granting of trade privileges and development of national industries through regulation and subsidies. In this, like European government established some companies which had trade monopolies over all over the world. For one of these was ruling over India, named as East India Company, which was chartered in 1600 by Queen Elizabeth. Mercantilist governments also supported the formation of powerful charter companies. One of that was British East India Company and Dutch East India Company. These corporations were granted monopolies. Now, what is monopoly? Monopoly is where it is called as in Hindi ekadhikar, जहाँ पर सिर्फ एक seller हो और multiple buyer हो, over the trade in certain regions, and often military backing function and instrument of both commerce and British cost. Now, in this slide, I am going to explain the basic mercantilism, that how it worked between colonies established by a colonial government. See, for example, a mother country had two colonies in country A and country B, named colony A and colony B respectively. Now, they have done what? They have restricted the trade between the colonies, and they were on the material of importing raw materials towards the mother country from colony A and colony B, and to the market of colony A and colony B they exported what? Finished product from their mother country. Now, this made what? This made a positive balance of trade, which helped to accumulate more wealth and power to mother country only, to build gold and silver reserves within the country itself. Now, we are towards the criticism and decline of mercantilism. By 18th century, economists like Adam Smith, Francis Quincy, David Hume basically declined the theory of being wealth which is finite. Now, here Adam Smith elaborated in his work Wealth of Nations in 1776 that wealth is not a finite resource, and economic prosperity comes from productive capacity of labor, not the hoarding of gold and silver. Now, what Adam Smith said that he emphasized more on the labor part as well as not on the economic part of the wealth only. Now, mercantilism gradually declined in the Industrial Revolution and gained momentum, and capitalism, which was a new economic theory introduced by Adam Smith in his book Wealth of Nations, now we are going to study capitalism. Basically, capitalism is an economic system that characterized by private ownership, in which free market alone controls the production of goods and services. Now, I would like to elaborate this, that capitalism is a situation in which there is only production by the private companies only, and there is no government intervention in the production of the goods and services. Now, what are the advantages of capitalism? First, efficiency of private sector. As we all know that government sector is somewhat lethargic as compared to private sector. Private sector is much more efficient and fast mover toward the working professions. Now, and there is no better alternative. As we all know that the best alternative in the market today is to have a free market. What is a free market? A free market is a condition where everyone is having free trade and religious practices, and there is no better alternative when it comes to private companies. Creative destructions. Now, the more competition between the private companies, there will be more creation and more creative and innovative methods of developing new goods and services. Now, the companies and the government and the customers will have freedom to choose whether a private company A or private company B in this capitalism process. And basically due to this privatization and capitalism, there will be more growth in living standards of the people. Now, with the merits, there will be also demerits of capitalism, in which you can see that economic problem which is having a inequality problem of capitalism. Now, if I say that if the government is, or in a country, if there is economic theory which is ruled as capitalism, you can say that there will be high income inequality between person. Someone will be very much rich and someone of the society, some person of society will be very much weak in economy. Now, due to which this inequality, there will be a condition of economic instability and monopoly of power. Now, what is monopoly of power? For example, a private company A having the more market share. Now private company B has no power of fighting that market to tackle that market share. In that case, monopoly of company A will rule, and what company A wants, it can produce of its own without any government interventions. This is what the problem is. Now, due to which the company B will also take many steps which are ethical or non-ethical steps to eliminate the monopoly of company A, which is short-termism. This is the major thing. For example, a country like India, which is having a mixed economy, we are having both private and government sector, in which we have restricted some sectors to government only. For example, Indian Railways. In Indian Railways, that is the only monopoly of what? Of Indian Railways to run railways in India. But if the railway system was privatized and the more companies were there to start the railway system, so in that case the monopoly of Indian Railway will be short term, which led to what? Which led to more and more economic instability. Now, the last point here is monopsony. What is monopsony? Due to this economic theory of capitalism, there will be a monopsony that at last, at the end of the time or the end of era, there will be only a single buyer left to buy a product, and there will be multiple companies to sell a product. And so, due to the lack of consumers, the lack of income inequality, there will be less production, and all the companies and the economic theory of capitalism will fail the whole nation. Thank you.